Hey y'all, welcome to the Team LocoFit Roundtable, hosted by me, Lauren Conlon, owner of Team LocoFit. Each week, I am joined by one of our coaches to dive headfirst into the nutrition, training, mindset, and coaching strategies we use with our clients. If you loved the show, please subscribe, leave us a review, tell a friend, you know the drill. And for more information about coaching, the programs we offer, and additional content, visit teamlocofit.com.
Not all of our podcasts are explicit, though, to be fair.
To be fair, all right, I'm back with Jill, as you guys probably picked up on. And all right, let's just say what. So, on YouTube, there is a feature where you click before you publish it. You click and you say,
"Yes, it's made for kids."
Yes, it's made for kids.
Or no.
No, it's not made for kids. And so Jill was making a video to share with somebody who's going to be uploading for YouTube now. And she was like, yeah, so you're going to click yes, made for kids. And I was like, Jill, this is not made for what? She's like, well, we're not talking about like bad stuff. I was like, no, we're not. But this is talking about being explicitly made for children.
Oh, well,
which is clearly.
See, the way I interpreted it was, are we talking about like violence or like anything like super graphic? No. So that's why I was like, well, then it's probably something that doesn't need to be like restricted, right? Like, you know?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was coming from.
But there's so many kids like, what is protein metabolism? Why am I talking about coaches and clients?
Start them young.
Listen, actually, yeah, might not be a bad idea, but probably gonna start cursing. I heard this on Lauren's podcast. All right.
Mom, what does dick mean?
Whoops. All right, well, today we are going to be answering one of the anonymous questions that was sent in, and this is a really good one, and I think everybody listening has probably been in a situation like this, and even if it's not this exact situation, you can certainly apply this. How do I tell my friend that their coach doesn't know what they're doing without offending said friend? Backstory. A friend of mine recently told me she is with a new trainer, and she wants to compete in a bikini show at the end of the year. This friend is pretty small, 5'4", 120 pounds, and has been lifting for about a year, and she's never had a coach. I told her I was happy for her, and it's cool that she has a goal to look forward to. About a week later, I get a Snapchat from her that her stomach is super upset. I ask her what the trainer has her doing. He has her eating 200 plus grams of protein a day. I try to tell her maybe she should question him, but apparently he's her friend and she trusts him. I feel like this guy doesn't know what he's doing, but I also don't want to offend her since he's her friend. Help. Help. So, whether or not you've been in this specific situation, the idea of, again, communication, refer to our previous podcast on Monday for more tips on that. Shameless plug. I love when they work together. It's like my favorite when we can refer back. But so depending on how you approach this conversation, you certainly could offend her, or you could actually have her reflect on this and encourage her to ask more questions. And that part is what goes for every situation, right? Like you can
make some kind of weird statement like, oh my God, that's terrible. Like, that's so dumb. What are you doing? Or you can kind of encourage them to like push them in the right direction as far as getting more information.
Yeah, so that's like I wrote down, like, so here's two situations, right? Wow, you're eating 200 grams of protein a day? That's so stupid. Your coach doesn't know anything. I'm really worried about you. So you're still showing concern because you are worried, but you're saying this in a very aggressive way. And obviously name calling and not really giving any context on that besides he doesn't know what he's doing. Or, wow, 200 grams of protein is a lot. How much were you eating before? Did your coach mention why he has you hitting those targets? That's still addressing kind of the elephant in the room and the situation, but it's much better, and somebody's going to be a little more open and receptive
to the second
towards that approach. And that goes for every situation that you encounter in life. There's always ways to be a little more offensive when you don't need to be, right? And now you can't tiptoe around life trying to not offend people. Like there's everybody's going to find something.
If you want to have like maybe a more constructive conversation, there's different ways to approach
that. And obviously name calling and questioning.
That's not really it's not really finding a solution if you name call someone.
And the second approach is how you're actually going to find the solution. Okay, what were you doing before? And then the client will then, or your friend in the situation, will be able to reflect and be like, oh, well, I was only having 150 grams. 200 does seem like a lot. Or maybe they were having 100, right? Like that would be like a huge difference.
Yeah.
And then, okay, well, have you asked him why? And then that could prompt somebody to be like, no, I actually never did.
Yeah.
I never asked. I just kind of did this, and now I'm feeling the repercussions.
Or like, hey, have you told your coach that you're really uncomfortable? Like,
Yeah.
Have you told him about the GI issues? You know.
That's a really big thing too. So one of the things here with this situation, in particular, so this is somebody who hasn't worked with a coach before. She's only been lifting for a year, so she likely just doesn't have a lot of experience in not just the like competition world, but also just in general, like the online fitness kind of coaching world.
Yeah.
And that's not her fault. She's new to this.
Especially if this is her first experience with coaching. Like, hey, like, not really sure what's right, what's wrong, what I'm supposed to expect. You know, it's very, very new territory for them. So, can't really expect them to know where they're kind of at right now with their plan.
Yeah. So this would then kind of prompt two directions. So one, this would allow her to then go, okay, you're right. Maybe I've reflected on this. Like maybe I need to ask some more questions. And maybe she never brought these concerns up to the coach, right? Maybe she was just like, well, this is bodybuilding, gotta do it. And then he was like, oh, I thought, you know, I've worked with other people and this has worked great, but maybe we should adjust it. And then they can change the plan and they can work together. Or she can ask these same questions and then him go, no, this is what all my clients eat and this is how you're gonna get the best response.
Like, oh, just stick to the plan, you know?
And
like,
then,
because I said so.
And then it's up to that client, and in this situation, her friend, to be like, all right, well, I make my own choice now, whether I want to stay with this coach or not. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. When somebody wants to work with a certain person or follow a certain protocol, we're all about it. You just have to have like full understanding of kind of like what it is. And if you've asked and you haven't gotten the answer that you like, that is really sufficient, but it works for you, all right, well then that's what you're gonna do, right? Like, you know now, okay, this has worked for other people, all right, guess I'll try it. And it's really tough because there's certainly been times where clients have come from really bad coaching situations, right, that we've had, or somebody will say, you know, something like that. This is, I mean, obviously she's having stomach upset and she's probably not somebody who needs 200 grams of protein, but this really isn't, for all intents and purposes, harming her. It's just uncomfortable and unnecessary. But there's definitely been plenty of times where there's uneducated coaches who will put people, you know,
in very bad spots.
Very bad spots. They will be having them do, I mean, tons of drugs that they don't need to be doing. They'll be having them, you know, cut their water, take diuretics. Like, these are things that can actually be like life-threatening when all combined, right? Like, those things on their own will not, but in combination. The craziest protocol that people used to do was cutting water, taking prescription diuretics, loading potassium, and cutting sodium. Like, if you want to have a heart arrhythmia,
there you go.
There you go, right? And obviously some people do, and you hear about people all the time who either pass out backstage or have a heart attack or whatever. I mean, literally I've been at shows people die. Like, now, would they have died otherwise? Maybe. Like, you don't know. But it's hard because you're like, at what point do you step in? And at what point is it like, well, you have to make this decision on, like, everybody makes their own personal decision. You know, going into it, maybe this is risky, maybe this is not. What I hate is when I hear like people didn't understand it, but again, that's also like, it's like this fine line. Like, if you were taking something, you should have looked it up.
No, that's kind of where I stand too. It's like, it's one thing to have a coach that's, you know, putting you in this bad spot, but also I want the client to be asking questions like, hey, like, I don't, like, why take something you don't even know what it is, you know? Like, ask, what is this? What is it gonna do? What's it called? Like, because I've had people on calls with me say, oh, well, you know, my coach put me on this, you know, insert illegal drug, and they didn't even, you know, question it, right? And there's some kind of, it's like a two-way street here, where someone's being irresponsible in their protocol, and then someone also just needs to ask a little bit more questions and be, you know, advocate for whatever they're going to be doing.
Yeah, and everything in life has risks, right? So if you decide to take any type of drug, or you decide to start any kind of protocol for anything, I mean, this could be training, driving your car, I mean, like, there's risk in everything in life, right? But you have to understand that risk, and you can't, especially when we're talking about drugs, you can't just be like, oh, yeah, somebody said I should take it, let me just do it.
Yeah. You have to make an informed decision.
You need to make an informed decision. And I mean, I feel like this happens less where we're just don't attract these type of clients. I don't know. But, you know, some people used to be like, yeah, somebody at the gym just gave me something. I don't know what it was. You're like, what?
Yeah.
What?
It's like, what if this scenario happened in like a back alley? Would you do the same thing?
Would you
like,
do the same thing? Like, you don't know what this is. And it's such a tough place to be because, again, you... As coaches, we want to step in, or even, you know, as in this case, this friend wants to step in, but you have to do so in a way that prompts the individual's questions.
Yeah.
And then they make their decision.
Yeah, because it's always weird because obviously, like, I think we both kind of think the same way where it's like, you know, it could be overstepping if you, like, try to, like, tell someone, oh, this is bad because X, Y, and Z, or here's what I would, like, it's a weird, sticky situation you kind of get into when you hear those kinds of stories.
Yeah, talk about that with when people ask, oh, my coach is having me do this, what do you think? Like, say they're not working with you, obviously.
No, yeah. Like, I've gotten a question or two of these recently where, you know, someone's asking me or telling me, like, hey, this is my plan, my coach has me doing this, and I have to be like, hey, like, you know, I don't like commenting, especially if you're still working with this person. I don't like commenting on other people's approaches. First, you know, I don't need to put any ideas in your head as to what, you know, what's going on, because I don't know the full story. You know, I only know what you're telling me. So I don't know where they're coming at or how they're describing things or how, you know, their check-in process is. All I know is, you know, this is what you're giving me as far as information goes. So I don't like to comment on anything for that reason. Like, I don't know the full picture. But also because, you know, I think this is another situation where why not ask your coach? You know, if they're giving you this protocol, I think this is a good situation for you to pick their brain and ask them why they're, you know, having you do this. Explain your concerns, ask these specific questions to them, and see what they say, you know, because I may not have experience with whatever plan or protocol they're trying to test out on you, or, you know, whatever they typically do. So, you know, I honestly can't speak on that and what that may look like for you. Yeah,
and generally speaking, you don't know the whole, like, you don't know not just that protocol, but you also don't know what they've been doing for the past 3, 4, 5 months, right?
Exactly.
You haven't worked with this person. There are so many times where if I were just to tell somebody, like, take a certain client of mine and say, hey, this is what we're doing this week, somebody could be like, really? Like, it would seem like, whoa, that's either extreme one way or the other, right? Like, that doesn't make sense.
It's just like a snapshot of an entire coaching relationship.
Exactly. Okay, this is a snapshot, and we're doing this for 3 weeks out of a whole, you know, 20 weeks was like this. We're doing these things, and this is also based on their history, what they agreed to do, what they're comfortable with. You know, there's all these conversations. If there's ever been a time where I'm taking a client to a more aggressive place, right? It's always a conversation. Hey, here's what I think we need to do. Here's roughly how long I want to do this. This is not a long-term solution, but this is the solution for our goals right now. What do you think? And they have to give me that consent of like, yes, I'm fully on board. If there's any hesitation, we're not doing this because you're not going to follow through with it and you don't feel comfortable with it. So there's no point of doing this protocol. So if this is in the case of like, let's say a competition prep, if you're not comfortable with this, which is really the only time I'm doing something like that, like anytime somebody's competing, like I'm not going to really do any kind of aggressive protocol unless we're prepping for a physique competition or like cutting weight for a weight cut sport. You know, like those are really the only
the only extremes
that we do. But so say you're not ready to do that. Okay, well then we need to push back the meet. We need to have you need to be in a different weight class.
Yeah, we need
you need to push back the show.
Yeah.
These are the options. This is what we can do with where your body's at, and we have to make that decision.
Yeah.
But it's about giving that client all of that information and not just saying, do this because I told you so.
Yeah.
So I think that in this situation, it's going to be really important for her just to prompt those questions. And then hopefully the friend will be like, oh, you're right, I should ask my coach. And then if he has a great reason, or if he's willing to make compromises, or he just simply didn't know, because that's the one thing. So we do want to touch on a little bit. Being very polarizing and bashing coaches is something that we really avoid for this reason, because we don't know the full picture. First of all, we don't want to bash people because I'm not trying to be that person who's just fucking polarizing to be an asshole.
Like, we can decide, like, there are a few topics that we can decide, like, this is probably dumb, or this is probably, you know, irresponsible and inappropriate. Like, there are things that we can strictly say, that's a no, right? But like when it comes to these kinds of situations with more context, that's kind of where we're like, you know, we don't know the rest of the story here.
And it's really just not fair or conducive to just approach people in the industry in this way, like, oh, I'm just going to bash people for this reason. You might completely disagree with somebody's approach, but you could agree with something else that they say, right?
Yeah.
There's so many people, and I try to talk about this when I share like books or like podcasts or whatever too, and it's like, you don't have to agree with everything that somebody says, right? Like, I can read a book and be like, wow, I loved like 80% of that. And there were some that I was like, I don't necessarily agree with that for X reason, or I don't really agree with that, but let me look more into it. Or there's certain people who I love what they talk about on certain topics, but not on others, right? Like that's a real thing too. In the coaching space, there are so many different ways to approach the same problem, and coaching is so dynamic that it's just hard to say like, this is good, this is bad. Now, do we think that 200 plus grams of protein for somebody who's 120 pounds is a good idea? No. But was that maybe somebody who had just started coaching people and maybe they're like, this has worked for my other clients?
Or maybe it's a man who's like, you know, 250 pounds who that's like
eats a lot of protein. Yeah, he's like, oh, well, this is low for me.
Yeah, well, I eat more than this. So,
yeah. And then if you had that conversation, he would be like, oh, maybe I'll change my approach. Or if it's like, no, now he's digging the heels in the ground, I'm not going to change anything, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Right? But you always want to prompt those kind of questions and give people the benefit of the doubt. Again, some protocols are just stupid. The one that I listed before with like the diuretics and the cutting water and all that, like,
stupid.
That's just flat out horribly wrong. And you're gonna look like shit. So like, that's the number one reason.
Cherry on top.
Cherry on top. You might die, but you're also gonna look bad if you don't have a heart attack. So there's that.
When you die.
When you die, you won't even look. Just kidding. That's so dark.
Yeah, we got real dark there. We just went from 1 to 0.
Anything less from me?
No, probably not.
Probably not. But how do we recover from this? All right, let me reel it back in. Say something positive, Jill. I don't know. Recover
I
this.
finished my blueberries.
Jill just starts stressing.
Antioxidants.
Antioxidants, so you can live longer and prosper.
I had a really nice crisp blueberry, and the mic wasn't even on, and I was like,
listen, why is it that some blueberry, like I will get a package of blueberry, and sometimes like they are all banging. Like you're like, wow, this is the best.
I've had blueberries like the size of quarters before. I'm like, these things are on steroids.
Sometimes I will literally eat like almost like a whole thing because they're so good, and the other times they're all shit.
And you're like, brought the container with me today. It's
like, how? Why is there no like?
There's no in between.
There's no standard. There's no standard with blueberries. I
Get
need
your
to
shit
know.
together.
I need to know why.
I feel the same way with strawberries though. Sometimes I get a bad batch and I'm like, oh, you are mushy. This is stupid. Same thing with raspberries. They're very fragile.
Yeah, raspberries, like it'll be like
it's either they're perfect or they're falling apart in my hand.
Okay.
I'm like, all right, I wanted that.
We're berry connoisseurs. Ask us about that.
Yeah, except blackberries. Blackberries suck.
What?
Yeah, they give me a weird aftertaste. I don't know. It's weird.
Okay, kick you off the podcast.
What?
Kicking you off the podcast.
I just got fired on air.
Just got fired on air.
Well, good thing. Well, I guess we're already in that process already. You planned for this.
I'm just planting these seeds.
Yeah.
I was ready for this.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to do that.
You
I wanted
knew
to
how I felt already.
make an example of
Set
it.
me up for it.
Communication. That's what we strive to have good communication
Yeah,
here.
I appreciate it.
But definitely not fire Jill, obviously. But blackberries are amazing. In any case, when you're in this situation, if you find yourself, if you're the friend, or if you find that you are, the client in this situation or anything, and you're just kind of confused, like, listen, I don't want to offend somebody, I don't really want to, come across like I'm questioning everything about what they have me doing, but there's certain times where certain questions are appropriate, especially if you're having negative, biofeedback from something.
Exactly.
If you're like, oh my gosh, my stomach is totally tore up, I feel awful, I can't digest this, like those are important things to bring up.
Yeah, those are things that are relevant for you to bring up with that coach, especially if they're not asking those questions to begin with.
Exactly. Going back to the last podcast.
Yeah.
Another layer. Making sure that you're asking those questions so that you do get that feedback. So then there is none of this issue, right? If you're asking on your check-in as the coach, how's your digestion this week? And then if you, not just 1 week, but like you're seeing 2-3 weeks in a row, somebody's like really upset. Okay, well maybe it's this protein.
Yeah,
you know what I
maybe
mean?
something's
What were
up.
you doing before? And again, these are all things that should have been addressed beforehand, but we don't know the full situation. So we're not here to bash other coaches. And if you're the client or you're the friend of somebody who's dealing with this, that should not be your goal either. The goal should be to ask the right questions, get the right response, and if you don't, then change the plan and collaborate. Then it's time to move on, and that's also fine.
We also have, I think, don't we have an episode on coaching red flags too?
Yes.
So
Don't know
like,
the episode number.
I would hope that they answer those questions or they're receptive, because again, if not, you see how they respond, and then you can take that information and go forth, forth and see what you want to do next.
Eat blueberries that are hopefully sturdy. So yeah, I mean, there's been plenty of times where a client has been like, hey, like what's, ask me a question about whatever, right? Why do we have it XYZ in the plan? And I'll say, okay, either here's the reason why, here's why based on, your history, here's why based on this hunch that I have, here's why based on something that I've started to implement and I wanted to try. And then if the person is like, oh, okay, that's sufficient. And it's always followed up with like, let's try this for a few weeks and then we can always adjust it. But it's, if somebody doesn't ask me that, then they're not going to know.
No, yeah, and I've had clients say like whether they're training with like a personal trainer at the gym or maybe their friend also does something in the industry, they may say, oh, well, my trainer said that I should be doing this. What are your thoughts? And I'm like, I have to kind of explain a little bit more, like, hey, like this is, yes, we're gonna get to this place, right? But here's me describing, why we're doing things the way that we are, the reason behind it, why it's best, and all these other things. So it's again clarifying that for them. But people can easily, kind of get into clients' heads. Maybe they share some wrong information. Maybe it's a very bro approach compared to what we're doing. So
let's touch on that because I get this all the time. So we work obviously in a unique space where. Yeah, some people have multiple. So they might have a nutrition coach. Like say they have us for nutrition. They might have somebody who does their training. They might have a therapist. They might have all these different people. They might have a doctor.
They might have just like stuff. Training partners at the gym.
Yeah,
who knows?
There's a whole network, right? And so that idea of like so many cooks in the kitchen or too many cooks in so many cooks.
So many cooks.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, right? And you're getting this feedback. And sometimes that network is exactly what somebody needs because now we have all these things in place and they're harmoniously working together. Other times they're like clashing horrendously. And this happens again very much in the competition space, whether it's physique sports or other athletic sports, right? Everybody kind of has this way of this is how I do it, this is how I've done it. And to your point, what you said before, like I try not to give too much feedback to people on things because like if I don't know them or I'm not coaching them, like even if they're just saying it in passing, I try not to do that, and because it puts me in an uncomfortable position because I don't want to overstep boundaries, right? But so say I have a client who's getting ready for something and then they're like, I did a posing lesson with so and so and they said I should stop training this and I should do a different division. And I'm like, all right, well, so-and-so is only seeing you for a certain amount of time. They don't know what we've been doing. They don't really know. They're not actually as involved as they probably should be in the industry to know what we should be looking for. And mostly they're seeing you right now. They're not seeing kind of how we've been tapering down and what we're going to be doing next. The bane of my existence in the bikini division is, I don't need to train quads anymore because X person told me not to. Listen, while I would agree that most bikini competitors do not need to train their quads a lot, right? You don't need huge quads for bikini. But if you don't train at all, guess what's going to happen? You're probably not going to have any amount of detail. When you don't have muscle there, say you do hold, fat there, now you're just having no muscle and you still have some fat and then you're just like flat, like there's just nothing there. So there is a point of like, hey, we're just going to train this like a few sets a week. Like we're not hammering quads, but we are touching them. You know what I mean? Like they are going to get worked. Yeah, we just slap them.
Just slap them. They got enough work in there.
That's how we work out. it's not about making that your main focus, but not training at all is going to, first of all, create a ton of muscular imbalances. If anybody wants to know, life of a bikini competitor who doesn't train their body proportionately is not a fun way to live. And again, this is not about training. Like, there are going to be things that you are training more than others, and there are going to be areas that you're hypertrophying more than others, but it doesn't mean that, oh my gosh,
yeah,
never
it doesn't mean
train
you don't
quads
train them.
ever
Like,
again.
for me, like, I don't go hard on lower body by any means.
No.
Like, I'm still doing it at least once a week.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I only train it once a week, but I'm still doing it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just like maintenance for me.
Because otherwise, when you diet down, it doesn't look as good. It just doesn't look as good.
Yeah.
So having too many cooks in the kitchen that are not working harmoniously can be very, very confusing, especially when people are first starting.
Yeah, especially when the client's being told one thing and then another, and it's like pulling them in 3 directions where it's like, okay, like let's regroup. Here's what we're doing, and it could be very, you know, definitely very frustrating too. But that's just reality of it. If you're especially like the person trying to guide them, right? If they're having so many different opinions coming at them, I want to do my best to like kind of clarify everything that we're hearing, but also I want to make sure that we're keeping, you know, kind of like muting whatever isn't necessary too.
Yes. Because sticking to one plan is a lot better than sticking
to like 5.
And doing like 25% for like 5 plans. Like, that's what we want to avoid at all costs. Sorry, I just had to add that in because you brought that up and I was like, okay, we have to touch on this.
Up like, you know, I guess like in the past year, probably like 2-3 times. So
it happens.
Definitely something that happens.
And it's not, you know, generally speaking, the client is doing it because they're trying to be a successful client. They're not saying like, oh my gosh.
They're like, hey, like, can you? And I'm glad they're asking me these questions too. So that's the best scenario for me, rather than them kind of going off and doing this other thing that someone else told them to do.
Yes.
You know,
it's like, all right, let's talk through why this could be happening, or what they're saying, or what they mean, or is this even something that is appropriate? Because again, they know nothing about your training. So especially the training comments, it just blows my mind that somebody who would know nothing about what you're doing would then tell you how to do something. Like, you don't know. Like, if you could say, hey, you shouldn't train your quads, Jill. And what if you're like, I already don't? Then what is their response, right? Like, you're like, oh, I guess train them less than 0, like, right? You're like, you don't know.
It's like, now you look silly.
Wanted to go off on that little tangent just because it does come up quite a bit. So if you guys have any situational questions that you would like us to address, we'll have that Google form below in the episode notes. Oh my god, I hit it again.
Oh my god.
Okay, I know. I really need to calm
down.
Fired. So fired
you're
you.
no longer the host anymore.
And you fired me, so now we're done.
It's just gonna be me and the blueberries on next podcast, okay? I just sit here eating blueberries. That's the episode.
Perfect.
Everyone just clicked off.
Everybody's leaving. They're like, wow, we don't even want to hear this outro. We know it's gonna be bad, and I don't want to hear Jill talking about blueberries.
Like,
so anyways, fill out the Google form. It is totally anonymous. If you have any questions, please leave as much detail as possible. For any other questions, you can go to teamlocofit.com. That's where you can apply for coaching, listen to the other podcasts, and also check out the articles that we write every week. So thank you guys so much, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye. Finger good.